horsemen of financial ruin. And I hope that as a result of last week, when we looked at the first horseman whose name is Hustler, and whose work is to get you to approach your finances without a plan, believing that you're just a hustler, that it will never get better than this, and that you will always remain a hustler. And if he can get you to approach life without a financial plan, then you're sunk, because without a vision, a people perish. And so we talked about the 10 plans that you need to put in place. One of them was a financial goal plan. Number 2 was a prayer plan. Number 3 was a spending plan. Number 4 was an emergency plan. And we talked about all these different sorts of plans. So I hope that you went and did some stock taking at home and thought through your financial plan, what you want to accomplish in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, even in the next 20 years, because for some of us, we have a mortgage that is going to take 20 years to pay off, and so you need to think through what you're going to be able to do. You have kids. There's school fees ahead of you. There's university and college ahead of you. What are your financial goals, and how are you going to prepare for that? At the end of this month, on the last Sunday of the month, we're going to have a special workshop after the service where we're inviting people who can come and help you, sign a will, who can help you think through things like, loans and restructuring and those sorts of things. And we're going to invite some service providers and say to them, please, can you help us so that, having heard all these things, walking out of the service in the last Sunday of this month, I can actually get it done there and then. And so if you're a lawyer here, if I was you, I would quickly approach, one of the pastors here and say, I can put together a will that can be signed on the spot by, anyone here who has assets, children, husband or wife, come and sign it. And even if it says just simply, I leave all my worldly possessions to so-and-so to be held in trust until the children are this age. That is good enough to begin with. You can always upgrade it. I once asked a lawyer, how much will it cost for me to sign a will? They told me it would cost me somewhere between 20 and 40,000. And so we did a workshop at the church, and we asked the lawyers to help us. They charged us 1,000 shillings each, and they gave that money as a gift for the scholarship fund that we run for children in high school. So if you're lawyers here, serve your church. Do this for God's people here who need to sign a will and who need help in restructuring their finances and loans and budgets and those sorts of things. This week, we're looking at the second horseman of financial ruin, and his name is the Enslaver. Would you turn with me to Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7. This is what Proverbs 22:7 says. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. Can we read that together? Say with me. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of this lender. The borrower is the slave of the lender. If there is anything I want you to go away with today, even if you forget everything I say, may you go with this resounding clang in your head. The borrower is the slave of the lender. I wonder how many slaves we have here today. I'm a slave. How many other slaves do we have? I'm a slave because I have a mortgage. Some of you have car loans. Some of you owe your company money. You've even taken an advance on your salary. Some of you, have borrowed from friends, or you owe your parents. Some of you here have not finished paying your dowry. And so you're all slaves. 2 months ago, The second horseman of financial ruin spoke to me. He did it in the form of a letter that I received from the bank, from my bank, which said, "Dear Mr. Muriu, as our esteemed client, we wish to inform you that we have upgraded your credit card limit from Y amount to X amount because you are such a good customer, privilege, track record, etc., etc." But what the letter was really saying, what the second horseman was really trying to tell me was this: "Dear Mr. Muriu, we think you're a fool and would like to really mess you up financially by extending your credit limit until we reach a point where you can't afford to pay down your credit borrowing each month. We need you to borrow enough so that you have to carry over bills from one month to the next. Since you can presently comfortably pay down your credit limit each month, how about we double it so that we can really mess you up?" I went ahead and carefully filed this letter in the rubbish bin because the borrower is the slave of the lender. You see, the second horseman is called the enslaver. And how he brings financial ruin your way is by driving you into debt. And he has 3 chains that he uses to tie down his victims and to enslave them. The first chain is called credit card debt. The second chain is called consumer debt. And the third chain is called the golden handcuffs. Let me explain each of these. The first chain, credit cards. It looks cool to flash out your credit card when you're at a shopping mall and, to run your credit card, swipe it through the machine, and then, with a pen you sign like this, and everybody sees. The machine never says, waiting, checking balance, cost denied. It never does that. It goes through, and the guy at the till tears out the paper and tells you, "Please sign here." It looks cool to do those things. Credit card and the use of plastic money in this country has been on the rise. It's been going up. More and more of us are using cards to pay our bills, especially the young, rising middle class of this country. And we have one of the fastest growing middle classes in the whole world. Credit cards are becoming a standard. But as convenient as credit cards are, they are the devil's tail with a sting in them. Be very, very careful about credit cards. They are not your friends. They are the enslaver's chain of bondage. The way they work, and you need to understand this to understand what I'm saying, is that banks allow you to borrow credit for, say, 30 days to pay for goods. You have 30 days to pay back the bank. And if I can't pay the bill all at once at the end of those 30 days, then they charge me an interest on the remaining balance that I carry over into the next month. It sounds fair. Okay, they're lending you money, there's a convenience that comes with it, but if you can't pay it all this month, then you carry over into the next month and pay the minimum payment, which is normally 10 or 20%. But there's a sting in the tail, there's a catch. In fact, there are several stings in this tail. Let me tell you, number one, What is the annual interest rate on your card? The bank does not lend you its money cheap. And they like credit cards more than they like your mortgage. They make more money off your borrowing credit than they do off your borrowing a mortgage. I'll tell you why. They charge me, the card I carry, charges me an interest of 3% per month when I borrow. That sounds innocent enough, okay? 3% per month. It doesn't sound too bad until you compute the cost and the interest per year. I called up my bank and I asked them, you charge me 3% per month. What does it work out to per year? And they waffled and they wouldn't tell me, and they huffed and they puffed. And so I called up a bank manager friend of mine who could be straight with me, and I asked him, how much does 3% per month work out to per year? And he told me 47%. That is what they call the annual percentage rate, the APR on your credit card. If you did not pay your bill for a year, you're paying at an interest of 47%. Now my mortgage is only 17%. And so the bank makes a lot more money off my credit card than it does off my mortgage. My dear friends, the borrower is the slave of the lender. Sting number 2. When you borrow on your credit card, you become a cash cow. What the bank really needs you to do is not to pay your bill at the end of the month. And so when they send you your bill, they say you have a bill of 50,000 shillings on your credit card, but you are welcome to pay only 10%. And when you get that email or that letter or that invoice, the bank manager is in his office and he is praying that you will pay just the 10%. Because the balance, they will make interest on you. Now, if you pay it all off, they get nothing. But if you carry it forward, they make a killing of you and you become a cash cow. And they will milk you until the matitis of the cow are dry, and then you fall down and die. Then they are done with you. If you pay the full amount, they get nothing. But you can become a bank's cash cow, and this is what they want. They love people who don't pay the full amount. They love them, and they want you to continue to borrow from them. Sting number 3. The borrowing can go on forever. If you borrow, say, okay, you borrow 100,000 shillings on your credit card, and then you decide that I'm only able to pay 10%, the minimum. Okay, so when the bill comes at the end of the month, you pay 10,000 minimum, and you carry forward the rest. Okay, and so the next month you have 90,000 to pay plus the penalty or the interest that comes as a result of your carrying forward, and so 3% of 90,000 shillings. And if you only ever pay the minimum, listen to this, it will take you 10 years to pay off that bill at the minimum rate. And so by the time you have paid it off, the bank would have made so much interest off you over those 10 years that they will freely replace your card, they will freely give you a ticket to Hawaii, they will freely buy you, things, because you are the ideal customer for them. And you thought they were doing you a favor. Credit cards are not your friends. Not too long ago, Lupita Nyong'o won an award, an Academy Award, for the film called 12 Years a Slave. You continue using your credit card this way, you will win your own award for 12 Years a Slave. Here's thing number 4. If you dare default and you say, I can't afford to pay, so even the minimum this month I'm not paying, and next month I can't pay the minimum, I'm just under too much stress, too much debt, and I can't afford to pay. Here's what happens. 2 things immediately happen when you default on your credit card bill. The bank charges you late payment fees for not paying. But it also increases the interest rate on your card because you're in default. Remember, per annum, it was 47% at 3% per month. They increase it to 60% when you default and do not pay. If you want to know how quickly your bill will double, it was 100,000, but you didn't pay 1 month, you didn't pay another month, you didn't pay a 3rd month. There's a simple rule that is used when you want to know how quickly your bill will double. It's called the rule of 72. What the rule of 72 is this: if you divide the number 72 by your interest rate, that's how long it will take for the bill to double. So if you have a mortgage, okay, and I'm paying 17% interest on the mortgage, I divide 72 by 17, and the cost of my paying interest on that mortgage will double after so many years. When you are paying 60% in default on a credit card at 3% per month, and you have a bill of 100,000, you divide 72 by 60, and it's about 14 months. In 14 months, your 100,000 would have become 200,000 if you do not pay your bill. And the bank will milk you until you pay. This is why, my friends, Romans 13 and verse 8 says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. Debt is a trap. Avoid it at all means. And notice, the Bible doesn't say that only credit card debt is a problem. It says all debt is a problem. The only outstanding debt you should have is the debt of love towards others, that you may love them more, but do not look to financial debt to be your redeemer. So this is the first chain with which the enslaver enslaves you, and it's a credit card. Now, some of you here are saying, I don't use a credit card. In fact, me, I've never had a credit card. I have my ATM card, I have my Nakumat card, and those are debit cards, and so I guess this doesn't apply to me. No, you're not off the hook. Let me tell you how debit cards and how Nakumat cards work. Ask your neighbor this question, okay? 2 questions. Ask your neighbor, why is Nakumat being so nice to me and encouraging me to get their new global card instead of the old smart card? Ask your neighbor, why is Nakumat even going into the banking business with Visa cards when they're not a bank? Most of us have gotten a Nakumat card. So have I. Okay? This card is not cheap. I mean, look at it. It has a microchip on it, It's been very carefully, very well designed. They have people sitting at Nakumat every day, at every branch of Nakumat, at least 2 or 3 people who sit there waiting for you to come and sign up for this. Who's paying them? You think Nakumat is paying them? I'll tell you why Nakumat wants you to have this card, okay? The enslaver stretches out his tentacles even with debit cards. He's going to get you one way or another. Let me explain. When you use your credit card or a debit card to pay for goods, you go to Nakumat or you go somewhere else, you go for dinner, take out your credit card, you run it. The restaurant or the mall or the shopping, outlet that you use a card in has to pay 5% of the profit of that card to Visa card or to MasterCard. They are charged for that service. Now, technically, they never pass the bill on to you. And if you're clever, you'll do what I do. I always negotiate on the thing I'm buying. And then after we've agreed on the minimum price, I pull out my card. And you can see the shop owner's face drop. Not only has he beaten my price down, but now I'm going to pay 5% on top. Because whenever a shop takes a credit card, it has to pay 5%, or sometimes in some economies 3% to Visa card or to MasterCard. So the shop is losing money in allowing you to buy with a credit card. And you know this, because with some of the shops you go in here, they always ask you, are you paying by cash or by credit? If you say credit, they say the price is fixed. They don't want to lose any more money on it. Okay, if you say cash, then they're willing to consider giving you some sort of discount. Okay? But here's the way it works. Study after study has shown that when you use a card to pay for your shopping, as opposed to paying in cash, you tend to spend 30% more than you would have if you're paying in cash. Think about that. The reason Nakumat wants you to use a card is because they know that once you have a card, you will tend to spend 30% more on your shopping than you would if you're paying cash. When you count out the money at the teller, it's painful to see how much money you have to give him. When you look at the goods and you look at the money, you begin saying, what are you? But when you have the paper to take out a card and you run it like this, you even look around, did you guys see? Mine didn't stop, shwa, like that. But Nakumat knows that you're going to buy more when you pay by the painless method of using a card as opposed to using cash. The bank doesn't make much money when you use your debit card, but the rule of numbers always works for them. They charge you, 30 shillings to use your ATM card, for example, to withdraw money and such. Think about it. How many bank transactions are done on a daily basis in this country where they get 30 shillings from the use of the card? If 1 million Kenyans use their debit cards per day, that comes to 30 million shillings just for using the ATM. And so the banks still love the ATM. And the shops still love your debit card, because when you use it, you tend to spend more than you would if you were paying cash. That's how debit cards work. So that's the first thing of debit cards. You're not off the hook, even if you don't use a credit card. Here's the second thing with debit cards. They trap you. The debit card that Nakumat is giving you is good. It has virtually no fees, but don't fool yourself that it's because Nakumatt loves you. If you read the application form, when you applied, you remember the questions they asked on the application form? They asked me, for my children's ages. They asked me for my children's birthday. They asked me for my wife's telephone number. When is her birthday? I looked at the form and I told the guy who was helping me fill it, I'm not going to tell you when my children's birthdays are. What business is that of yours? And he very quickly said, okay, you can leave it blank. But some of you, they want my children. These people are so good. My wife's number, etc. Do you know why they're asking for those things? There's a reason. It's because of the way they get information from you when you use your Nakumatt card, your Tuskys card, your Ruchumi card. You have a number, they have profiled you, and whenever you buy things at Nakumatt and you get points on your card, they have a record of you and how you spend your money. And so they can begin to use that information to market the sorts of things that they know you want to buy. It's still very new in Kenya, but let me tell you how it works in the US or in the developed economy, so to say. You go to Target, you go to Walmart, you run a card through that, and it's called, a point card, what do they call them, a privilege card, all sorts of nice names that make you feel special. But they can tell from your buying that this person has so much money that they spend with us, they always buy these products, and they like the more expensive one as opposed to the cheaper one, and so they can begin to market you specifically and send you adverts for exactly the sort of things you want. When it's pushed to the limit, there was a court case in the US because of this sort of collection of information, and everyone is doing it now. But here was a problem, okay? A woman got pregnant, and Walmart started marketing baby clothes to her when she was only 1 month pregnant. And she wondered, how do they know that I'm pregnant? Even my husband doesn't know yet. You know what it was? About 3 weeks into her pregnancy, this woman had gone and bought a pregnancy kit. Okay? And Walmart noted, when a woman buys a pregnancy kit, she's testing something. Okay? And so watch this space. And then they noticed that, she had also gone in, and as a second thing, about 3 weeks later, this woman had gone in and bought, a baby product. Something small, okay? And they figured she bought a pregnancy test kit, and now she's begun buying baby products. This woman is pregnant. The pregnancy test showed yes. And so they began to send her, adverts of baby clothes, baby coats, all these baby perfumes, baby soaps, 8 months before she was to give birth. How did they know that? Because the card told them. They know when the birthday is, they know what you will buy, what sort of products you're looking for. And so lo and behold, a month before the birthday comes to you, they tell you, we have a special offer, for birthday things. A month before. Christmas, they know exactly what you like to buy, and they begin sending you the adverts in advance. It's marketing. Because you have this card, they can get money from you. They can force you into consumer debt so that you can spend for the things that you like. And they drive it. You think you're in charge, but they are driving it. The enslavers' hooks and talons have already begun to sink in you. And Nakumatt is not your friend. That's the second trap. The third chain that the enslaver uses are the chains of bondage that are called the golden handcuffs. The golden handcuffs. This is how this works. You got a swanky new job, okay, and you're really happy about this. And the company that you're working with has decided to give you a brand new Range Rover, okay? And as part of your terms and benefit, they have offered you a mortgage of 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. They're offering you a scholarship, a scholarship for your children so that they can study. And when the children get to university, the scholarship extends into university. Every 3 years you work, you get a free holiday to South Africa or to the UK. And you feel as though you've arrived. This is your dream job. You couldn't wish for more. What you don't realize is that you have just sold your soul to your company. They have put golden handcuffs around your wrist, and you are now their slave, albeit a very pampered and comfortable slave, but you are now their slave for the next 20 years. How is this? The company puts golden handcuffs around your wrists by raising your standard of living to a height that is not sustainable unless you remain with them or get a higher paying job. And to make sure that you are not marketable for a higher paying job, they pay you enough that anyone else looking at you can immediately see they're not worth that, and so I don't want them. So you can't get another job. But they raise your salary to a lifestyle that you cannot sustain except that you stay with them. And when the time comes for you to start thinking, I want to leave this company, you remember the car will be taken away, the children will have to be pulled out of the swanky school they're in, you will no longer get your holidays to London, and university scholarship imepotea here, and you will not be able to pay your mortgage. So you stay with the company because they know that you are not going anywhere for 20 years. We've got you, we've got handcuffs around your wrists, and you're already addicted to the lifestyle that we taught you, and you're not going anywhere. Now they can yank the chain. When your holiday comes, they tell you there is an emergency in the office, we need you to take only 2 weeks of holiday, you cannot get the 4 weeks you're entitled to. When the children come, you're told, some companies offer paternal, leave, hakuna hiyo hapa, we need you to work. They tell you anyone who doesn't come in before 7 o'clock shows a lack of commitment to the vision of this company, and so you're there early. Once you're addicted to the golden handcuffs, the enslaver has got you. Now, it's not just the people who get swanky jobs who get caught with the golden handcuffs. Many of you here cannot move from your place of work because you have a mortgage you're paying down. And the worst thing that could happen to you is that you would lose your job and not be able to continue paying your mortgage. You already have golden handcuffs around your wrists. You're not going anywhere in a hurry. And the people who are easiest to catch are actually teachers. Teachers in private schools. You know how they do it? They tell you your child is going to get free education in this school as long as you're a teacher here. And you're going to get free transport from the school transport system as long as you're a teacher here. And then they pay you peanuts. But when you calculate the cost of the school fees and you calculate the cost of the transport, you will stay in that school until your youngest child graduates from the school. So the school knows it has you as a teacher for at least the next 18 years. you're not going anywhere. And that's what they want. And they can see your child is in Form 3, your child has gone to Form 4, next year I know this teacher will resign, but they've got the next one. And they have them for 18 years. The golden handcuffs have been put around your wrist. And when the golden handcuffs are put around your wrist by the company or the school, and they yank the chain, your job is to say, yes, boss, how high do you want me to jump? Because you can't go anywhere. You're in debt, and you cannot manage the debt except for the job. The enslaver's third trap is to get you hooked to a lifestyle that you cannot afford, dependent on the company or the school, hooked to an unsustainable lifestyle like a junkie in need of a fix every month. Otherwise, you sink into bondage. It happens in governments also, by the way. Ambassadors have worked for governments for 30 years, living in London, living in Washington, posh, privileged life. You always have a driver. You always are received, on behalf of the government. But finally, when your time is over and you come back home, you realize the house was the embassies, the cars were the embassies, the drivers were the embassies, the schooling the children were getting were the governments, and you come back home to retire in poverty. The golden handcuffs kept you in bondage until they were done with you. My dear friends, debt is not your friend. And the borrower is a slave of the lender. When you go into debt, you lose control over your life. Once you borrow, you are a slave. You lose control over your freedom. Number 2, debt eats your tomorrow. The way it works is that I am borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today. Number 3 is debt presumes on my tomorrow, not just eats my tomorrow, but it presumes on it. Because when you take a 15-year mortgage, not only have I borrowed from my future at a cost, at a price, at an interest, but I am also presuming on that future that I will continue to be productive and healthy and able to earn until my debt is over 15 years down the road. It presumes on your health, it presumes on your earning capacity, it presumes on your job, and that the job will be consistent and able to pay you for the next 15 years. Debt is addictive. Once you get used to borrowing, it's very difficult to stop. Because what it teaches you is instant gratification. I don't have to save up for something. I can go with my credit card, borrow from the bank, and buy myself the pleasures I want and pay in the future. And it becomes addictive. And debt will destroy your life. When you begin to default, it will destroy your credibility if you can't pay. It will rob you of your sleep. It will put you under tremendous stress and drive you nuts. It causes you to worry all the time. It can destroy your marriage, and it will destroy your friendships. The best way to manage debt is to avoid it altogether and to make a decision as a believer, as a Christian, to live a debt-free life. I do not owe anyone any money. I have the freedom to walk away from my job if I want to. I have the freedom to purchase what I need to purchase with my money, not anybody else's money, because I am debt-free. The Bible therefore says, let no debt remain outstanding. That's what our goal should be as Christians. And it gets even more serious than that, because if you read Matthew chapter 6 and verse 24, this is what the Lord Jesus said: "No one can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth or money, and you certainly cannot serve God and debt. As long as you have debt, you are a slave to that debt, and it will crush you and compromise your faith because you're under so much debt." So all debt is bad. All debt, hear me well, all debt is bad. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes it is necessary to take on debt. Few of us, for example, can afford to go and buy a house cash down. And so we talk about good debt and differentiate good debt from bad debt in this way. We say good debt builds your assets and your wealth and your personal value. Bad debt takes away from your assets and your personal wealth. Let me explain that a little more. A good debt will cause me to become more wealthy because it makes money for me. Bad debt takes money out of my pocket and consumes it. Now, let me just say it again. All debt is bad. Start there. But if we were to talk about good debt, there are three possible scenarios where debt can be called good. The first is in a mortgage whose property value is going up faster than the interest rate on your debt. That's good, because even though you're paying an interest on the mortgage, the value of the property is rising faster than the interest rate you're paying on the mortgage. That's number one. Number two, a business loan, where you borrow money to make money, and the money you're making in your business is far greater than the money and the interest you borrowed from the bank. That can be termed as good debt because it is making money for you. And then number three, and this especially for the young ones here, is an educational loan. Because an educational loan adds to your personal value in terms of employability. To get a loan, a university loan, so that you can study a degree or maybe do a master's that increases your employment options so that you're better paid, can actually be a good debt. But here's what you need to watch out. Even a mortgage can turn into a trap when you buy more house than you need. And this is the biggest problem. That I only need X number of square feet to be able to live reasonably. But I go and buy twice that size house with a mortgage that is double that in a privileged area that I cannot afford to live in, and then that debt becomes a real burden because I bought more house than I need. Or alternatively, I take a mortgage and buy a house in an area where property values are going down, not up. That's bad debt because I'm losing value against my mortgage. At the same time, too, an educational loan can become a bad loan when we do what the temptation is, which is to go and get money to study. And then I go and buy a Mercedes-Benz, degree at the university, at Oxford University, Harvard University, Yale University. I go to South Africa to one of the universities there, or I go to some really posh place to get my degree in. When I could have gotten the same degree that is Datsun 120Y. You remember those cars? The Datsun 120Y. You see, both the Mercedes and the Datsun will take me to Mombasa. But the one, will be sitting on leather and, comfortably. The other one, I'll be taking a bit of fumes and mangata, a little high as I go along the road. But, they will both take me to Mombasa, which is their goal. If I take a debt to go and get a degree at Oxford, it costs me 10 times more than doing a ROCO degree. But guys, many of us did ROCO and we turned out okay. We've gotten the jobs, we've gotten the degree, you're an engineer of sorts, you're a medical doctor, and you turned out okay. It's not about Oxford, it's not about Harvard, it's not about Yale. It's about financial wisdom and stewardship. Bad debt takes away from your net worth. Let me tell you an example of really bad debt. Buying a car on a loan is bad debt, especially for young people, unless the car is being used for business to create wealth. To those of you who are young, so oftentimes when you graduate from university or college, your first big investment is a car, using a car loan. A car actually eats up your wealth. Replacing tires, service, insurance, fuel, accident repairs. If you want swag, because that's what a car gives you as a young person when you're just fresh out of college, 3 months and you've already gotten a car. If you want swag, just go and buy some Chinese sunglasses. They give you as much swag as a car. You buy a Vitz, 500,000. Because it's with a bank loan, you will end up paying 700,000 when you add the interest on top. Which fool ever went to a shop at Nakumat and you tell them, I want to buy this, basket over here. It costs me 60 shillings, but I'm willing to pay 80. That's what you're doing, okay? And not only that, you then have to buy insurance. Every month you pay, 2,500 fees or other fuel costs. For every shilling of fuel that you put into your car, you should set aside a shilling for maintenance, for service, and to replace the tires and whatever else. And finally, you have to buy insurance. You pay parking fees. You clean the car. Some people even buy perfume for their cars. And then they go on to call their car Susie or some other name like that. I don't get it. What ends up happening is that car will cost you 15,000 shillings for fuel and maintenance per month, and then you have insurance and all the other things that come on top per month. And so it's eating your assets, and its value is going down rapidly. When you drive it out of the showroom, it loses 25% when it crosses the gate of the showroom. And its value continues to go down from there on in. If you're on a salary of 50,000 take home, not even before tax, take home, you should not be operating a car. Even a salary of 100,000, you should not be operating a car, because it means you're putting the equivalent of 20% of your salary into the car. After you've paid for it, 15,000 fuel and insurance and replacement costs and accident fees and service and maintenance, 15,000 per month. When your salary is 100,000, that's 15% of your salary going into the car and into transport. From what we said last week, this is not wisdom. Remember what we said last week? If you're living on more than 60% of your take-home, you're living beyond your means. And so you don't want to do that. As a young person, stay off buying a car for as long as you can. Live in a place where there's easy transport to work. The kids' school is just around the corner, they can walk. And the shops you can go to on your way home from the bus stop, whatever, so you don't need a car. If you have to buy transport, let me tell you the secret, and don't laugh, okay? Buy a boda. For 2,000 shillings, that thing will run for 2 months, okay? And you know what, ladies, even you, I'm talking to you, buy a boda. You know what? When you put the boots, and you put the jacket, and you put the helmet, who will know you? So if you work for Kenyeri, go and park it at 20th Century Cinema, and then walk to work. Then they won't know. One final thing, let's conclude with this, okay? You're in debt. You need to get out of debt. Let me give you 8 quick steps. Nothing magical about them. Number 1, if you're in a hole, stop digging. You've heard that advice before. Do not get into more debt. Stop and get out of the debt you're in. That's rule number 1. Number 2, start living strictly by the spending plan that we talked about last week. You will be surprised how much you can cut from your present budget. Downgrade your food. Githeri has fed generations of Kenyans, hundreds of years. You don't need the sausages and the polony and the, whatever, tsunami, what is it called? You don't need those things, okay? Number 3, sell off some stuff. As a church, you could actually have, a boot sale Sunday where you come with all the things you need or you don't need anymore, and all of you come and you either sell it off for cash or exchange, so that it's barter trade. And in that way, reduce your expenses. Sell off what you don't need. Anything, ladies, any dress you have not worn in 6 months, take it out of your wardrobe. Any shoes you have not worn in 6 months, sell them off. And the same for guys. We have far too many clothes hanging in our wardrobes, too many pairs of shoes, and too much stuff around the house that can actually make money for us, okay? Number 4, make a debt repayment plan. Even with the worst debt, if you go to your bank and tell them, I can't pay, but here's what I'll do. I want to take 2 months where I'm not paying, and then I will come back and I will begin to pay at half the rate I have been paying. As long as you talk to the bank, they will work with you. Remember, they don't want you to disappear. That's a worst case scenario for them. They want you to keep paying. And if you cannot afford to pay at the rate that they are charging you, go and negotiate with them, okay? Do not let them be your boss. Go and tell them, Muninyonge, you do what you want, I don't have any more, this is what I can afford to pay, and let's sit down and talk. They have to listen as long as you talk to them. The worst thing you could do is to disappear. Then they will collect, and they're not pleasant, okay? So talk to them and make a debt repayment plan, even with your friends. Just go and tell them, I can't pay you until January, but I promise you in January I will begin to pay XYZ. They will listen, okay? So make a debt repayment plan, and once you've made a plan, make it automatic. In other words, put a standing order on your account. When your salary comes in, there is a certain amount that is immediately deducted and put in somebody else's account that you have your money. Make it automatic so that it never comes into your hands. If you don't want to pay the cost of a standing order, then go to your friend and tell them, I owe you 50,000, I will pay you 5,000 shillings a month for 10 months and pay you back. Give them 10 checks in advance for January, February, March, April, 10 months, and tell them, my salary comes in on the 24th of the month, go and cash this check on the 26th. And in that way, it's automatic. You know that you're going to pay your bill. Number 6, invest in your debt. My mortgage costs me 17% per month presently. The rates are coming down. In fact, I've been bullying my bank. I hope none of my service managers. My bank loves me, by the way. Let me tell you. They have even given me relationship managers. And you know how many relationship managers I have? I have 3. When I walk into the bank, they won't let me go to the teller. I don't sit at the inquiries desk. They usher me into the back office. 3 of them are clamoring over me to come and talk with me. You know why? It's because they're milking me. And my interest is high, okay? Instead of investing in shares, the question I ask is, if I invest in shares, will I get a better return than my mortgage interest of 17%? If the shares I invest in give me 20%, then the 3% means it is wiser to invest in the shares than to invest in my mortgage, okay? And pay down my mortgage quickly. But let me tell you a fact about myself. It's not, I don't put them at the same level because of the financial peace I have as I see my mortgage going down. And so I will only invest in an investment if it gives me at least 30 to 40% return as compared with my mortgage. The financial piece is more important to me than the profit I make off the investment in the immediate. And so invest in your debt. If you have debt like credit card debt that is costing you 3% per month, 47 per year, pay it down first. Even sell off some of your assets or investments and first get rid of that debt, because there is very little that you can invest in that will give you a return greater than 47% per annum. Invest in your debt. Number 7, focus on one goal at a time. You become discouraged when you try and do 10 debts at a time. Focus on one and pay it down. And then take that money and put it on the second one and pay it down. And take the money, put it on the third one and pay it down. And then finally, start an income-generating project to pay down your debt. Remember I told you last week, I'm keeping dogs to sell, okay? Rottweilers. I also have a cottage industry where I'm keeping bees for honey production, and I also actually breed rabbits for meat and for pelt. And I'm always looking for other ways to generate an income with what God has put in my hands. And so can you, so that you can pay down your debt. Go home with this today and say it one final time with me. If they could put it up on the screens here. The borrower is the slave of the lender. Do not let the enslaver get you. Let's pray together. Father, hear us. For some of us here are in major debt and we're in despair. Would you please give us wisdom to know how to take this word from the Bible, that we should be debt-free, we should owe no man anything, that we do not want to become slaves, and that we cannot serve two masters. Give us wisdom, therefore, to process this and to do what needs to be done. Make us a people who are proud to live debt-free, knowing that we owe no man anything. except the debt of love. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. God bless you.